we are resuming the webinar on efficient public procurement complaints mechanism and the role of an independent review body, which is organized by the Institut des Finances Basil Fuleihan in partnership with the World Bank and OECD-SIGMA. I would like to welcome all those who are attending for the second day. Also, new attendees are welcomed as well. أهلا وسهلا بالكل. The objective of this webinar is to inform the discussion on the establishment of a new procurement review body for Lebanon by bringing the experience of other countries. Yesterday we had the country of Denmark. Today we will have three more experiences. We will see them in detail. So on this second day, we will start with a brief recap on yesterday's discussions and highlights shared by the experts. Then we will look at the experiences of three countries in establishing their own procurement review bodies, which are Georgia, Romania, and Croatia. Then we will move to questions and answers. I would like also to remind you about the logistics. We remind you to interact and write your questions in the chat box anytime during the webinar. Please let it be to everyone, not private. So also the speakers and the experts can answer the questions. Also, I would like to tell you that the session will be recorded. The recording as well as the PowerPoint presentations will be available on our website and they will be shared with you later. We may face some technical problems related to the internet connection. So in case you have, there is a platform cuts, kindly reconnect using the same link. Now to introduce the discussions and day two, we will take a poll with the help of Basma. Basma, can we have the poll, please?
Yes. I think my poll is deactivated because there is another person logging in the same account. I'm having a technical problem with the poll.
Okay.
So I think
there it is.
So we can see it. We can see it.
Oh, you can see it?
Oh,
okay.
yes,
okay.
It's here.
So poll one,
It's
a question about the review body. So you may just select one answer and then we will see the results.
Okay, so please take a few seconds to answer this poll. In the meantime, I will give the floor to Mr. Daniel Iverson, international expert in public procurement, for the debrief recap on day one. Mr. Iverson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rana. Indeed, I will not take too much time with summing up here. We will have another opportunity at the end of today's session to draw some further conclusions. Yesterday, we were looking at some general principles for reviewing complaints in public procurement and how this could be done in an appropriate way in order to help move public procurement forward and achieve the benefits intended with procuring goods, works and services for the needs of the citizens and the authorities. And we also have some observations based on the current situation in Lebanon, and those two aspects will then lead us forward about the things to do and what kind of lessons we will be looking for from the different country examples that we have started looking at. So first of all, we have noted that in the current system, there is no separate first instance review body or mechanism for handling complaints that is really working. We also noted that such a first instance review body would need to have the main purpose to help the procurement process move forward, and doing so in full observation of public procurement principles set out in the public procurement law. And among the needs that have to be met for this purpose in the work of the review body is particularly the need for speedy and good quality decisions, which are taken in full consideration of all the relevant aspects of the procurement at hand. That is the legal requirements, the formalities set out in the regulation, but also the nature of the goods or works and services and how they are best procured in order to meet the needs, and the situation in the market, what can be done, what should be done in order to enhance competition with a view to obtaining the best outcomes of the public procurement. And for that reason, we will need to keep in mind a few elements of the current situation and what can be done about it. The current weaknesses of the court system mean that it is not envisageable to handle first instance review by the courts. There is a need currently for an independent, specialized review body that would offload the court system. There is a need to focus the work of this review body on ruling on complaints that are specific to the application of the public procurement law. And we have, and there will be, other means to deal with related issues like fraud, corruption, collusion, and so on, that should not have to be handled also by the procurement review body. And of course, if there is a complaint on public procurement, it may be an indication that there is something else going on, fraud, corruption, and so on, but that would then be dealt with separately from the particular complaint and the particular resolution of it in a public procurement context. And doing so, there would still be an opportunity for appeal against the review body decisions. And there we have a perfectly suitable entity already in place. That is the judicial second instance review of the first instance review body decisions could remain with the State Council. So they would not work in parallel in any way. They would simply be respectively the first and second instance review bodies in the Lebanese systems to be put in place. And I think those are the general observations and conclusions from the general part of the first day. And we will now continue with the country examples and draw some additional conclusions about lessons to be learned and how to move forward.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for this recap. Before we continue, we are glad to have among us MP Mr. George Aes, who is a Member of Parliament and also member of the Parliamentarian Committee discussing the draft law. Ahla wa sahla. We hope that we will have the occasion to have the concluding remarks with you, Mr. Aes. Okay, so now we will move. Before we move, did we finish the poll, Basma? Daniel, do you want to say anything about the poll results, or we leave it till the end?
Well, I would need to look at the poll results. I haven't seen them, I'm afraid. We can do that when suitable.
Okay, okay. So we move now to the country experiences, starting with the experience of the Dispute Resolution Council in Georgia, which will be presented by Mr. Kaha Dimitrashvili, Deputy Chairperson, and Mr. Dimitri Gulizashvili, Head of Foreign Relations Department from the State Procurement Agency. We are pleased to have you among us. The floor is yours.
Well, hello, everybody. Basma, could you please confirm that you can see the screen, right?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you. I can see from my side.
Okay. So good afternoon, colleagues. Good morning, good evening. So it's my pleasure to tell you the Georgian story, and during my presentation, I will try to reflect some issues raised yesterday, or to give you some echo from our lessons learned. Well, the Georgian story starts almost 11 years ago, when we have amended the law on public procurement, and we have introduced the the electronic government procurement system, which totally covers all public procurement transactions. So we need to consider two important issues actually to understand the Georgian context. That 100% of the public procurement transactions are running via electronic procurement system. This is very much important to understand how it works in correlation with the compliance system. And the second important point is also to understand the role and mission of our agency. So State Procurement Agency of Georgia is a single public procurement authority operating under the direct supervision of the Prime Minister. We are not part of the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economy, or other line ministries, and we are fully independent. And we are performing functions not only of the regulatory body, we are issuing bylaws, we are drafting the laws, but also we are very much actively participating in the monitoring and law enforcement activities. We have administrative functions, and we are issuing administrative penalties against the contracting authorities, and we are performing as a central procurement body, performing centralized procurement activities as well. So as a result of this reform, sure, we were leading in the region the fighting of corruption, or reducing the risk of corruption and encouraging fair competition. And the power of Georgian public procurement landscape at that time, it was one of the most advanced. So regarding the administrative review body, actually the last one that are gonna to introduce to you is the 3rd edition. Very much important also that the first solution, the first model, was established back in 2011. It was called Dispute Resolution Board. And at that time, it was, let's say, innovation that 6-member board was, let's say, partially half of the members were civil society activists elected on the NGOs conferences. So watchdog NGOs, some specialized economic and financial NGOs were electing their representatives. And this is also very much important to understand the local context, that from that time we built the trust. This is very much important, that this instrument, this administrative review body, we managed to build a trust from the business community and civil society organizations as well. This is very much important to understand how we are operating. And on other hand, so in my country, this administrative review body is not part of the judiciary, colleagues. This is very much important. And judiciary and the general system of courts in my country, they have no any resistance. They are not sure, they are not against of the managing of the public procurement, let's say, appeals and complaints, solution or settlement of those complaints through the administrative review system. So, however, sure, we face the disadvantages, especially introducing of this first solution, because 3 members were representing state procurement agencies, so 3+3. And this model was, let's say, negatively assessed by the international stakeholders, including OECD-SIGMA, and Mr. Daniel Iverson was conducting several missions as well. And most important is that European Commission was not very much happy with that. You have to know that my country, in 2014, we signed the association agreement with the European Union, and we have a free trade agreement. And according to this association agreement, Georgia has committed to establish the independent and impartial administrative review body. One more additional international actually context is that so we have ambitions to access the World Trade Organization agreement on government procurement, and sure, establishing of the independent and impartial review body will complement those our efforts, and it is also required by the WTO. So the most important phase, I would say, was the last year for the Georgian story. We have, in order to reach the full reformation, the total reformation, or revolutionary, I would say, revolutionary reformation of the Georgian administrative review system, and to establish the new dispute settlement council, we called it. So we had an extensive negotiations, consultations with the different international stakeholders, including different Directorate Generals of European Commission, the US government, EU delegation, EU twinning, and IX instruments were involved. Sure, the SIGMA is a competence center. SIGMA has conducted several missions, and EBRD, especially EBRD and World Bank colleagues were involved, but EBRD, especially EBRD, has a special, let's say, legal transition program, and legal transition program experts were supporting Georgian authorities in that. So we have received a lot of comments, suggestions, remarks, and after that, at the end of 2018, imagine, more than 2 years ago in December, in Brussels, we have agreed on the new model. And after that, so we spent almost 2 years to ensure those 5 dimensions that you can see on the slide. So we called, let's say, draft a sort of the roadmap to ensure this revolutionary reform. The most important thing is also to underline is that our Dispute Resolution Council is not only the public procurement related for cases, but also for concessions and public-private partnership projects as well. So we have drafted the new legal framework. So imagine we have adopted the primary law, we have adopted the 3 complementary laws, we have adopted the law on competition, we have adopted some government decrees, our agency agrees, and we have issued the 6 prime minister decrees even in that regard. Regarding the institutional setup, so institutional setup is the mainly, I will tell you a little bit more regarding of that. So 5 members are already appointed, and 10 staff members are also already contracting. So the configuration is that it was recommended by our international consultants to have 5 or 7 members, and half of them, they should be the lawyers. It means that minimum 3. So we decided to have 5 members and 10 staff, secretariat, office, let's say, office secretariat members. You know that the last budgetary year was very much difficult for each country, especially for my country. We are a small country with transition economy, but we still managed to ensure the financial support. This new institution is financed directly by the state budget. So regarding the electronic, as I mentioned, we have abolished any paper-based document flow or any papers in my country already 10 years ago. So several years ago, we have introduced the new law on electronic document and electronic signatures, or even so we have no any other actions than electronic, and for that reason we have developed the special electronic module for management of compliance and appeals, and this module is a sort of subsystem of the Georgian e-procurement system. And the last dimension of our activities was, let's say, training activities, capacity building activities. So we have trained them. So we as an agency, so we try to ensure even the new electronic services, let's say new skills and knowledge on new electronic services. Well, the European Court of Justice and European Court of Human Rights has defined the indicators to how to define the tribunal. So, and we are considering in Georgia that our administrative review body is a tribunal. So it's administrative review body. It's like a quasi-judicial body, but not part of the judiciary branch of the power. So, and it's independent, impartial administrative body established under the law with aim of resolving disputes quickly, efficiently, and fair. And it's important that this body is separate from all bodies, all persons, and independent. So nobody can, even Prime Minister, they cannot call PRC members or tell something. Regarding some general features, regarding some aspects, so some very general, let's say, indicators of our reform agenda. So any person interested in participation in procurement, any economic operator, business agent shall have the right to appeal a decision or action of a contracting authority or tender committee. So yesterday, I would reflect on yesterday's some questions of the members of the Lebanese Parliament. So this is administrative body, and it's and this administrative body is taking care just on decisions or actions of the contracting authorities. This is very much important, and also this administrative body.
Please, can you mute, please, those who, except from Mr. Kaki?
And this administrative body is also taking care regarding the tender documentation. This is also important. So we divide into the two different phases this tender process, and I will tell you why and for what reason. So the process is as following. So no later than 2 working days from submitting an appeal, electronic appeal, the council shall decide on the eligibility of the appeal. In the past, we faced some cases when, because the system is very much open, the Georgian system, anybody can register, it's free of charge. And we faced that some, let's say, companies or some persons or even individuals can block the process and can some postpone or delay the implementation of the government projects. So that's why, or they are not filling those electronic forms. And so that's why the eligibility of the appeal is very much important. Sure, in order to be fair, we are giving 1 more working day actually to revise this complaint. And yesterday, our colleague from Denmark mentioned that average time frame for solution in Denmark of those appeals is 5 months, according to my understanding, if it was my correct understanding. So in my country, we have maximum 10 working days for a final decision. So this is, according to my knowledge, it's a minimum, let's say, time frame in Europe. So also very much important that we are manage how it works actually, because everything is totally covered by electronic procurement system. So when Dispute Resolution Council and relevant secretariat, let's say officer, is clicking on the button and clicking and taking some next status, so upon finding the appeal eligible, the electronic system ensures that all next transactions are suspended automatically. This is also very much important to ensure that contracting authority tender committee cannot, let's say, process further and cannot take other steps. This is also very much important. So on the last, let's say, phase, the decisions of the council also are published in electronic module and in the system also upon their adoption, and it's also transferring to the all involved actors automatically via the electronic system. Also, according to law, it's mandatory to implement the decisions and immediately. So it is punished. So we and the court. So after that, State Procurement Agency has the special administrative, let's say, commission, and we are issuing the administrative penalties against the persons, members of the tender committees, not against the institution, you know. So this is also very much important to influence on the tender committees. So against each person, we are issuing administrative financial penalties. And that's why they're very much afraid. And so it's so decisions of the Dispute Resolution Council and our decisions are mandatory to implement immediately. So we are not facing, almost not facing any case during the last 10 years that tender committees or contracting authorities are ignored the decisions of this administrative review body. But also it's very much important to underline that those decisions, sure, can be appealed in the court as any administrative decision or any administrative legal act according to the Georgian Administrative Code. Any decision of any administrative body can be appealed in the court. And here I have to mention that in my country we have 3 different levels of the courts. So general system of the court, general courts, appeal court, and Supreme Court. And we even have cases even until till the, let's say, Supreme Court level even, but very few, but still we have cases in the past, cases in the court, almost, approximately 1%, some, let's say, in order, I can imagine that you are interesting, so almost during the last years, we have more than 1,000 cases each year, and almost 1% are going to be appealed into the courts system. So we have introduced the fees for the appeal. Yesterday, our Danish colleague mentioned 1,500 euros for each. We have the, let's say, range from 25 till 250 euros just, and it's based on deposit. Like we also introduced, our Georgian banking system is also very much advanced and electronically. So we have managed to, let's say, connect via e-government systems, so electronic treasury, electronic procurement system, and private banking electronic systems. So really the commercial banking electronic system is just freezing those amounts on the account of the businessman. And after that, sure, we have introduced the concept of refunding. So even although those fees are refunded to the businessman, to the compliance, not only in the case when the appeal is absolutely, let's say, the business operator is winning the case, but also when it's partially winning. So we have 3 different statuses. And regarding the institutional setup, so we have 5 members, 1 chairperson and 1 deputy chairperson. As I mentioned before, among them 3 are lawyers, and we have 10 staff or secretariat, we called it secretariat members, and 1 chief of the staff. Regarding the operational guarantees that we have introduced, so by the law, we ensured the budgetary financing and budgetary funding of the salaries of those 15 persons, and we, let's say, make equal remuneration of the chairperson is equal to the remuneration of the chairperson of the city court. It's in my country, it's a, it's a huge position, to be at Tbilisi city court chairperson. It's a huge and high level, let's say, authority. And the same deputy chairperson and the members, just remuneration of the council members are the same as the district court judges. So regarding the transfer of the budgetary funds, it's also interesting that yesterday we heard the interesting Denmark also case regarding the affiliation, I would say, attached to the different, let's say, institutions. So we, my government and my parliament, my country's parliament, was against actually to establish the new, let's say, public entity, to establish the new legal entity. And the money is just transferring via the National Competition Agency of Georgia, let's say, budgetary funding. And why? Because the National Competition Agency of Georgia is also independent, let's say, independent from the government, not depending. So it was one of the conceptual approaches, important approaches, is that this administrative review body should not be a part, should not be agency, should not be dependent on executive power. It is not part of the government, let's say, and that's why we try to ensure even support staff, even budgeting, premises, some conference halls and something, even to ensure supporting of this reform via independent institution, not, let's say, line ministry or something. So regarding the electronic module, and the interesting is that all documents, all decisions, all minutes of the DRC, everything actually are published and are public actually and open for the public, except the personal data. Sure, we have very strict legislation on protection of personal data. European, I would say that my country has transposed the European provisions of protection of personal data, and but we are putting, so one of our cornerstones of our reform is full transparency, you know, and by this mode, you know, by ensuring the full transparency, we are thinking that we are fighting corruption as well. This is one of the, let's say, concepts of our approach in eliminating any corruption risks as well. So, and as I mentioned before, so electronic procurement system is also automatically shares all decisions with the parties involved. Just to illustrate how it looks like, those different electronic forms and those electronic services that are connecting with the electronic procurement system. Here are some figures of the from last appeals, I mean last years, not last actually, all 10 years of appeals. And you see that more than 1,000 cases we have each year. So this newly, it is actually the third solution, the third model. The second was established in 2017 and was also negatively assessed by the international stakeholders. And this newly established council, I am very proud and happy to report that it was very much positively assessed by European Commission and officially formalized this positive assessment and evaluation by the latest, let's say, association agreement steering committee. From beginning of the January, this new revolutionary model is operating, and we have received already 188 complaints during the past 2 months, and among them 38 is above the EU monetary thresholds. So one of the also difficult issues to negotiate with the European Commission was the cases of the single source procurement, so direct procurement cases. So European Commission was requesting, my government was against actually. So we have found some solution, compromise solution, that above the EU thresholds, now even single source procurement, even emergency cases will be subject of appeal on this administrative review body. So, well, many thanks, Dimitri. If you want to add some more issues, yeah.
Well, actually, this presentation was very comprehensive. I don't have any much to add. I just would like to say that this establishment of dispute resolution, independent dispute resolution body was under the association agreement and the CFTA obligation, and we elaborated roadmap to approximate with EU legislation, EU public procurement legislation, and in this roadmap, is envisaged with the 5 phases, and the first phase of approximation was first phase of approximation envisaged to create independent and impartial dispute resolution body. So by establishing this review body, we closed the first phase of approximation successfully, and now we are on the second stage of approximation, and a lot of challenges to come. So, and we are very happy and proud that by creating independent and impartial review body, we already accomplished first phase of approximation. So at the moment, EU Commission and our EU partners have no any further complaints or questions regarding the review body. This is fully complements our obligation, which is undertaken in the association agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaka. Mr. Dimitri, thank you for a very informative presentation. Mr. Kaka, you have highlighted some very important points that answer some of our questions here in the discussions in Lebanon. You told us that the Dispute Resolution Council, your procurement review body in Georgia, is actually, you call it a tribunal. It's not judiciary, it's a quasi-judicial entity, a quasi-judicial body, and it's not part of the courts. It takes decisions against both the procuring entities, but also individuals which are members of the tenders committee, which is, this is something new and something very interesting to see. You said also that the decisions are appealed in the court against the decisions of the DRC are appealed in the court. 1% only of the decisions are appealed, which is it's impressive. Average time for taking a decision is very quick, 10 days in Georgia, which is, yes, actually it's the minimum time allowed by the EU. And you said that in the recent years you had filed more than 1,000 cases filed each year. Really impressive work for the DRC. Thank you, Mr. Dimitri, for also talking about the roadmap. Before going on, I would like to welcome again, and we are glad to have you among us, Mr. Georgia Ace. Sorry for the misunderstanding. I thought Khitem Misik, but I would like to ask you to give your view on this and maybe open up some questions. So I give you the floor, please. Mr. Georgia Ace.
Thank you, and hello everybody. I'm sorry, I have a very slow internet connection, so I have to turn off my camera. I'm very glad to be part of this instructive webinar and very deep discussion regarding our hopefully new procurement system in Lebanon. I totally agree with what has been said so far. Yes, we want to see the creation of a real new and impartial and independent and not corrupted procurement system in Lebanon. And this is one of the major reforms we are aspiring to in the remaining time of this parliament. First, I want to say, yes, we have weaknesses in our judicial system. And yes, we have some current struggles, if I may say, in the State Council itself. But in another hand, we don't want to tailor our newborn procurement system based only on these weaknesses. What if we could improve our judicial system? At that time, should an independent complaint body would still be the best scenario for us? What I mean, I would like, as a lawmaker, to have the confirmation from the experts here present, the confirmation that an independent first instance complaint body is the ideal solution that would work in the Lebanese ecosystem, regardless of the court system status. Because yes, right now we have so many challenges in our court system, and it's have been decades, and we can't move forward on the real reforms in our judicial system. But I want to have the argument, the right argument among all the other lawmakers to tell them that the good lessons and the best practices from the international systems are telling us that having an independent complaint body is a must, regardless of the judicial system, the efficiency of judicial system, the independent level of the judicial system. Two, if I will select this option, and to tell you the truth, and all the Lebanese fellow here in the webinar know that I'm totally with an independent body, but I want to have the right weapon, the right arguments. If we will select this option, there might be an overlapping jurisdiction between the complaint body and the current first instance in the state council. In this case, we will have to amend state council law, and especially Article 66. And I'm not sure we can do so, and we can amend this article without the council state consent. So we will have a sort of bottleneck. And this is the first layer of complication. The second issue I have in mind is the appointment mechanism of the compliant body members. How can we ensure the highest level of anti-corruption and fraud measures to be taken in the appointment mechanism? So when I will have from you as an international experts the right answers on these three questions, and then I can tell you, and I can be very satisfied to go to the General Assembly and fight for the selection of an independent, a totally independent, quasi-judicial or administrative body. It's not the matter of a big issue for us, but we want to have all the argument in our side to defend this option among all other lawmakers. Thank you, Rana.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So very interesting questions. This is the core of the issue here discussed. The discussion at Parliament, the discussion with the State Council.
If you want, I can reflect very briefly, if you want. Sure.
Yes.
Sure, Daniel, you know, Daniel is smiling that because we had the same discussions, gentlemen, many years ago in my country. So, but, you know, it is, you know, from our perspective, it's very simple, you know. Situation is very simple and very simple answers. It is not a philosophy. Firstly, the case, what is the public procurement? Public procurement is the project, is something that you, on the budgetary funds, you are providing some, let's say, goods to your population, right? You need kindergartens, roads, bridges, so you new port and something, right? And you need it fast, not after the 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. I has a privilege to be in Beirut for several weeks. It's a beautiful city, especially downtown. And I was very sad saying this this explosion, you know, very sad. And sure, you have to restore your city. You need to provide breakfast for your students in the kindergartens or in schools, right? Not after the 5 months, 6 months, or 1 year. And now ask the average time frame in your courts. In each country, in my country, one regular judge at the city court has more than 1,000 cases per each one. 1,000, imagine 1,000. And imagine how many times, I mean, which time frame he needs to read those papers. So in my country, we have identified even 28 judges who are in those 3 different levels of the court system are, let's say, deal with the public procurement cases. And those judges, we are collaborate with them. And they're asking for us trainings, imagine. And several times per year, twice as usual, we hold for them seminars. Why? Because public procurement, legislative operations, secondary legislation is very much difficult even for them. It's strict. That's why you need several professionals, very much professionals, full-time, with full-time job, and targeting just on public procurement cases. Why we have 10 days? Daniel will agree with me that we are in European member state, they have no even this, let's say, average. Because why? Because government, we are in transition, we are growing, you are growing, and you cannot wait for many times. You know, we are facing cases when several even economic operators on different stages are appealing, and that's why we even have not only 10 days, but maybe 1 month or 2 months even. But still, we are operating. The argument is the fast and much more competent and much more qualified and fast resolution of those cases. Regarding the, let's say, selection process, I will tell you how we are dealing with this. In many countries, they're in the best practice, actually, that Croatia and Slovenia is doing, is that the members of the parliament is directly electing them. In my country, we decided my government and parliament was against of this model, because the parliament of Georgia is electing just judges of the Supreme Court of the country, and it was political decision not to be make equal some members of administrative review body to the Supreme Court judges, and that's why we have a hybrid model. So we established the independent selection commission, where 2 chairpersons of the 2 parliamentary committees, financial, budgetary, and economic committee, I mean sectorial, are participating, 2 deputy ministers, let's say 2 representatives of the government who are electing by the parliament, and 2 independent persons, 1 head of the civil service bureau and 1 professor of academia, well known in the country by independence and strict non-influence position. So those 6 persons, the Civil Service Bureau electronically opened the contest. More than 100 candidates were applied, and this independent selection commission shortlisted 25 candidates, and after that represent 10 of them to the Prime Minister and Parliament. Twice, I mean more than twice. And among those 10 shortlisted persons, there were 5 of members were electing for 5 years. Why we are ensuring those independence and, let's say, resistance to the corruption? Because they have absolutely, you know, they have power. The position is guaranteed. They have very high salaries, no need to fraud and something, and they have guarantees as a judges, you know, as a members of. They are not judges, but they are guaranteed. They have, by the law, they have same guarantees. We have copy paste the articles of the guarantees from the law on Constitutional Court of Georgia. Imagine. So they have equal guarantees of independence and so on as a judges of the Constitutional Court. How it was my speech against the Lebanese Parliament, so I can.
Anna, may I just add one comment briefly? It's just
Please, Peter,
to
please.
clarify, the EU rules currently do have a minimum period of 10 days. But that minimum period is the minimum period that must be available for the economic operators to submit a complaint. The EU rules do not set any limit for how fast the complaint board must reach a decision. It is very impressive that you can do that in 10 days in Georgia, but I always personally get worried when that is imposed as an obligation, because it gives me a concern about the quality of the output if you're under such a strict time constriction.
Thank you. Thank you. I see that there is a raised hand. Mr. Aes or Mrs. Ghenwa? Mr. Aes, are you satisfied with the answers of the three questions?
I'm totally satisfied. I think, yes, the disposition time and the average disposition time between a judicial court and an independent complaint body would be, yes, a great argument to go to this option. And then what is very interesting in the Mr. Kahi reply is the appointment from the parliament. So I think we have in Lebanon such an exercise with the Constitutional Court. So they are not necessarily judges. We have criteria and specification, and then they can present their candidature to the parliament. So I would like to know more if we have the law of the public procurement in the Georgian model, to see in depth the appointment mechanism of the dispute resolution council. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Mr. Kahi. You have many questions here in the chat box. I will start with a question from Lina Faris. Lina is asking you, you said she is saying that the two first models had conflict of interest embedded into their composition. Do you have an answer to that?
Yes, and that's why we developed the third model. Yeah, it was not professional. It was partially, let's say, appointed by the government, and moreover by the state procurement agency. So 3 persons, and after that, among them 10 persons. So the 2 boards, but it was a lot of, let's say, government officials. And sure, it was risks of influence of the executive power. And that's why we developed the third model. Regarding the question, I have noticed the question regarding the courts. No, it was misunderstanding. No, we have 3 levels of the courts, but the first level is administrative review body. In my country, also it's interesting to share with you our lessons learned, negative lessons learned, I would say. So we regret to refuse the concept of the appealing to the contracting authority directly. So Peter and Daniel yesterday tell you story. In our case, it is not working, you know. When the tender committee of any ministry, of any agency is deciding something, it's no sense to appeal to the minister, you know. It is not because of our mentality or your mentality that, you know, it's it's matter of, we refused, we cancel it. So now economic operator can appeal either to the review body, either to the court directly, but nobody is appealing to the court because court cannot, you know, you have to wait for several months just for first session of the court. After that, nobody knows what judges, I mean, you have to pay for that and so on and so on. In our system, so it's also interesting that to underline that in order to fight the corruption also and eliminate any risks, the first phases of appealing are free of charge. I mean, the fees are introducing just after the bidding. When somebody, if you see some collusions in the tender documentation, if you can see some bid rigging cases, and believe me, economic operators knows better than you or law enforcement agencies. They know each other very well. They know who has which links. In my country, and I believe in Lebanon as well, they know neighbors, they are friends, and they are appealing, you know, better. They are fighting corruption better than we can. And that's why we open the system. We make everything transparent, and everybody, even you from Beirut can appeal to the Georgian Administrative Review Body free of charge and stop the process. If you see something wrong, but after the bidding, when the bidding is starting and 10, let's say, companies spend the money, resources, and time for preparation of bids and tenders, just after that, just those bidders can appeal, but they have to pay those few money, you know, 25 euro or 200 euro maximum, 250 euro. Thanks. I will stop here.
Thank you, Mr. Kaha. Actually, we still have questions for you. You just answered also Mrs. Tatiana Itani. I still have two questions from Mrs. Ghinwa Haddad from the CDR, and one question from Mr. Muhammad Mughabbat. So I will start with Mrs. Haddad. She is asking who and how the members of the DRC are appointed in order to assure the impartiality of this review body. I think you have answered already that, so it's answered already. Second question from Ghinwa. Do you take the opinion of the contracting authority on every complaint you receive, or it is against the law to get in touch with the contracting authority? And concerning the part-time members with the Danish experience, is it successful or is it better to have a full-time staff? So these are two separate questions for you, Mr. Kach.
Regarding the Danish, I am not competent. Sure, Peter is here. No, according to our, let's say, understanding of this model, everybody are full-time. It's full-time job for 15 persons. 5 are, let's say, members of this quasi-judicial body. They are like judges, but not members of the judiciary. And 10 persons are, let's say, staff, supporting staff members. And those are full staff members. And we ensure to get them, they're civil servants also. Those 5 members are obliged to fill declarations as a high-level officials in the country, and to be, let's say, target of anti-corruption agency and something, law enforcement and civil society and so on, to have a look on them, those 5 persons. And we ensured for those 10 staff members the highest possible salaries in the civil service of my country. And the first question was regarding, sorry, Rana, remind me. It is second. And
yes,
the
first was about the opinion or the contracting authority or the complaint at the level of the contracting authority.
If I understand correctly, you have to know that despite of some, let's say, pessimism, we still managed to have for each case open verbal hearings. Peter, imagine it was your skepticism, but in my country, according to the general administrative law, each person, each citizen, or each company, sure, each legal entity can come to any session of any administrative body and participate. It means that this is also administrative body, and we are managing those cases by the verbal hearings. We are inviting both parties, contracting authorities, economic operators, and the third parties also. We have a concept of the third party, interested party. It may be a media, it may be some trade union, other companies, and as usual, we have three different parties on verbal hearings during open administrative sessions. And we are recording them, and we are making minutes. And also, despite of some skepticism on the business, do not believe to the businessmen are allowed to say that we have some commercial secrets and please so on and so on. No, in our the Georgian, let's say, lessons learned fighting the corruption is that it's bullshit. Sorry, don't think that. Please make everything transparent. Make everything transparent. Make many parties involved, especially businessmen. And believe me that this is the one of the strongest effort to fight corruption.
Thank you. One last question for you from Mr. Muhammad Mughabat. You said that CSOs take part in this review mechanism in your country in Georgia.
Misunderstanding, Rana, misunderstanding. It was during the first model, not now. It was the model from 2011 till 2017. No, any civil society activists are participating. Those 5 members are professionals, selecting by independent commission and by the parliament of the country and by the prime minister personally.
Thank you, Mr. Kacha. Can we just elaborate, just to clarify something here, because it's very important for us. You know that civil society organizations should play a role in the oversight of the public procurement procedures and process. And you know that in many countries, this is a only legitimate request for them to be involved in the process in a way. Can we just clarify, because we had also this discussion with the EBRD earlier, and we had also asked the other opinion from SIGMA and OECD on this particular point. Is the CSO, the civil service organizations, are they, do they have the right to file a complaint at the PRB in Georgia? So to start with, in Georgia first?
Yes, as I mentioned, during the first stages of the tendering process. But before the bidding, we have deadline for the starting of bidding. Before that, when the contracting authorities in electronic system openly are publishing we have no concept of, if you have here in audience the public procurement professionals, they will understand me. Several years ago, we conduct a huge reform, and now we have no concept of tender documentation even. The electronic system, when you are putting the CPV codes, did you know what? It's a European classification of the goods, services, and works. And when you are entering CPV code, contracting authority, the electronic system is generating questionnaires, different questionnaires. According to your answers, so the system is asking your different questions, and you are filling questionnaire. And that's all. We have formalized the process of the, let's say, publishing of the tender documentation. And we eliminating the mistakes, corruption risks, and so on and so on. So, and when everybody, you can see free of charge now, even now, you can watch all Georgian tenders opening when they are publishing, and everybody, free of charge. You need a couple of minutes to register, or if you have Facebook account, it's fastly. with your Facebook account, you are entering the Georgian system and you see everything what happened, you know. And you can appeal on each stage, also appeal electronically, pushing button and filling very primitive questionnaire. I mean, what you are appealing, in which provision, and so on and so on. And after that, the DRC, it's electronically, the system is sending to e-module, and those, those 15 members, they have different levels of access to the system. And according to the access to the system, they're evaluating those, let's say, electronic documentations or requests or appeals or complaints, and it makes eligible or not, you know, pushing one button, and system is blocking everything. You know. This is this is unique, I guess, unique experience. Daniel will agree with me that it is not, any country in the world has such type of model. And the system is blocking any action. You know, this is the much important. This is fighting of corruption. That even the corrupting somebody, some member of the contracting authority, minister, deputy minister, local mayor, or somebody, if he wants to make deal with the businessman, he cannot.
Okay, thank you very much.
Rana, can I ask just a last question to Mr. Kahi? When you said that you have members of a parliament nominating two in the board, how many parties you have in your country? Do you have more than two?
No, it was also, it's my fault, maybe some misunderstanding. No, we have the clear provision in the law.
Yes.
That the Independent Selection Commission should elect or should shortlist the candidates. Shortlisted to present to the Prime Minister and to Parliament to be elected. So it is law, but law says that the two chairpersons of the committee, parliamentary committees, I mean sectorial, you know, not human rights protection or not cultural, financial budgetary committee. Each parliament has, I believe, Lebanese Parliament has financial budgetary committee, and we have also on the committee on economic policy and sectorial economy. And two chairpersons of those, it doesn't matter which party they are present. Parliament is electing them, right? And in my country, we are parliamentary republic. The prime minister is also elected by the parliament. So those two chairpersons of the parliament must be in this election commission. So we by law ensure participation of the parliament, active participation in selection of those for 5 years, so 5 members.
Yeah, I'm asking the question because in Lebanon we are very highly politicized, and then putting this kind of criteria might slip different in another direction. This is why I wanted your clarification on that.
Oh, Lina, we are not saying in my country we are also crazy people. Not only you. We have more than 100 parties. We are 3.7 million. And more than last parliamentary elections, during the last 60 plus parties were participating. I said we are a little bit crazy. Okay. I'm joking, sure, but it doesn't matter, you know. The chairperson of the committee, it is the official position, you know, and the members of the parliament are electing them. And those two chairpersons of two, let's say, I would say sectorial committees are ensuring participation of the legislative power with executive power and with independent bodies in selection of and shortlisting of those candidates. This was also our know-how, I guess.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaha, for a very interesting experience of Georgia. You know, all these discussions and thoughts will feed the discussion also of the draft law at Parliament and the parliamentary committee. I would also invite you, if you have this is open also for the audience. If you have any question or written comment, to write it, to send it to us. If you need to, I mean, if you have a view on the draft law or something interesting to share. Now, after Georgia, we will continue with the country experiences. We will move to the experience of Romania, with the experience of the National Council for Solving Complaints, with Mr. Silviu Popa, Senior International Expert at OECD-SIGMA. Please, Mr. Popa.
Ok, bonjour. Je vous remercie pour l'invitation de participer à ce webinaire. Et après ces brèves introductions, je continue de parler en anglais. I hope that you can see the presentation. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can see it. But if you wish to use the full screen mode.
Yes, yes, just 1 second, please. Okay. Just my computer is a bit slow. Okay.
You can just press F5.
No, I just press F5, but it takes a while to just happen to have some updates or something like that. But it's okay. It's going to, let's move forward until we'll do his stuff. Yes, it's quite a challenge to talk about public review body. If nowadays you are going to ask someone in Romania about how we're solving complaint, you'll get a good answer. They'll say it's fine. Speaking about the Romanian Council, they will say, okay, it was quite a good investment and it pays off. But if I go back 15 years ago, probably you'll get a different answer. But still, after 15 years, I think it's something that we've done something good. That's why we are here. And I'd like to share with you. Right now, what I think that we did something good, it was that we managed to stay independent. I think it was one of the main key parts in order to perform our job. We work to support a good compliance, we monitor the compliance trend, and we use compliance data to improve the effectiveness of the enforcement of the law. It's true, and I think it was previously mentioned that it was used as sort of the words, the need for speed. And the need for speed, it comes from actually the nature of the state budget. Because the state budget, it's correlated with the fiscal year. So in order to finance your public policies, you have to spend the budget within 1 year. And the public procurement is the tool that helps you to spend the public money. It doesn't matter we are talking about the national funds or about international funds. And how we are going to spend the public money is not to our discretion. Actually, we have to spend the public money according to the law. A couple of years ago, Romania transposed the EU directives related to the public procurement. And actually we have 4 different laws. One is related to the public procurement, other one is to sectorial procurements. We have another one on concessions, and the 4th one is related to the National Council for Solving Complaints. We decide that it's better to have each thing in separate laws in order to be monitored, and it's easy to be understood and to be applied. I'm going to brief you about the Romanian institutional system. We have the National Agency for Public Procurement, which is the regulative body. They are going to do sort of advisory opinion to help the contracting authority to deliver training, to monitor, and to do the ex post verifications. In terms of solving complaints, is the National Council for Solving Complaints, which is a non-judiciary administrative first instance solving complaints, that where the economic operators can lodge the complaints. We have a 3rd institution, the Authority for the Digitization, that is the administrator of the public procurement platform. And we have the judicial branch, and I'm talking about the courts. And at the end of the line, we have the Romanian Court of Accounts that is in charge in verifying the whole process. Speaking about the procurement process, actually, we have 2 main phases that is separated at the moment of signing the contract. We have the ex ante phase, where the procedure is going, and actually the contracting authority is performing the procedure and trying to selecting the winning bid. And we have the second part after the contract has been signed, and actually the contracting authority is surveying the and monitoring the execution of the contract. A few words, let's say in a nutshell, about the council. It's actually an administrative non-judiciary review body. We are the first instance, and as a characteristic, we are fast-track service of solving complaints against public procurement. Remind you the need for speed. Then it means that in order to not block the procedure, you have to solve quite quickly the complaints. It's true, it's important, the quality of the work, but in the same time, we have to deal with the complaint in a timely manner. The purpose is to guarantee compliance with procurement legislation. We have the role to remedy and eventually to cancel illegal procedures. We are independent. It means we are not subordinated. Our competence is to annul documents and the words and to require contracting authority for measures. And we have to annually report to the Romanian Parliament only. I think it's one of the good things that we are not politically engaged, and as any public institution, we need to present in front of the Romanian Parliament what we've done in the previous year. In terms of administrative structure, I would say that we have 11 panels. It means 3 members of each panel, and we have 3 members, 3 staff members as a support. We are public servants, the member of the panels, with high degree of experience. You see, more than 10 years as a professional experience. We have a combined experience, legal, technical, and economical, and more than 3 years public procurement experience. Our status, as I mentioned, is it's a special one for civil servants, and after winning a public contest, we are going to be appointed by the Prime Minister. But what is the matter here? The key word is the public contest. That's our selection criteria. As a president, you have to have a law degree, more than 12 years, the same period, the 3 years as a member within the council, is chosen between the members by vote, and it has 3 years mandate. You may see here the flow chart to see how our departments are being structured. This is actually the bedrock or our philosophy for solving complaints. Any person considers being harmed in a right or legitimate interest can lodge a complaint. Initially, I have to say that lodging the complaint actually was free of charge. But at some point, actually the number of complaints exceed the initial expectations. What I mean about it is that when the legislator approve the review body, they're thinking to have a couple of hundreds, the most, complaints per year. But I have to say that in 2010, I think we reached more than 10,000 complaints, almost. And we start thinking, okay, it's quite a number. Then we have to address somehow. And of course, we start with the good conduct guarantee that being repealed by the Constitutional Court. And nowadays, in order to lodge a complaint, the economic operator has to submit a bond. It's a bond with a 2% out of specific value. Actually, it's 2% out of the estimated value, but it is with a cap. How we dealt with this bond, actually, it was a long story, and Parliament, government, European Commission participated. Even the World Bank, actually, together with them, we work for a report. And I think in this paragraph, you may see the perception about complaints. Because the first, let's say, official perception about a complaint is think that it's frivolous or abusive. And I think that the government is perceiving the complaints like stalling the public procurement. That's why we are not able to build a highway or to build a kindergarten, as been exemplified previously. Well, it's not quite like this, because imagine if you have 10 complaints and being considered all of them with merit, then where is the abusive part? But actually we start working and trying to refining the study, and what was noticed, it actually is that through the complaints, you can see and you can spot the vulnerabilities of the public procurement system. Actually, the review body is quite a tool of the free economy market that helps the public authorities to fine-tuning the public procurement system. Actually, to check and balance. Why is that? Because within the complaint, you can analyze all sorts of things. You can see the spot soft of the law, and you can see the soft spot of the contracting authority. Because it's about the industry, eventually. You are going to buy works, services, and goods from economic operators that are specialized within specific industries. Actually, their amount of knowledge is much bigger than the contracting authority knowledge. Actually, the contracting authority, through the public money, it's finding their access to the market. Speaking about the need for speed, we have two things that I have two things that I'd like to mention. One is the minimum timeline for submitting a complaint. We have 10 days and 7 days. If you're not complying as economic operator with the timeline, then your complaint it's overdue and will be considered as non-merit. About the solving a complaint, we have to solve the complaint within 20 days after the tender file submission, and we are allowed to have 10 days extension if needed. And some of the experts previously mentioned, I'd like to say that the quality of the work is important. And why is that? Because when you have a huge public procurement procedure and you like to, let's say you like to build a highway and you have 10 bids, right? You take how much? 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year in order for the contracting authority to evaluate the bid. I think it's a bit of a stretch to ask a review body to solve a complaint with this amount of information in 10 days and to analyze the same amount of information that the contracting authority has for this 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. It's unproportionate. Of course, we have sort of legal exception, then you can manage in 10 days. And within the council, crossing the line is going to trigger a disciplinary action. The claims against the council decision can be appealed within the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal has 45 days in order to solve the challenge. But please keep in mind that actually when you go to the Court of Appeal, half of the problem is already solved by the council. Why I'm saying that? Because within the process, the member of the panel are going to tackle each thing that is being previously mentioned within the complaint. And we are having a multidisciplinary approach. We can tackle both technical, legal, and economical issues. From my experience, actually, the critical part of the complaint are mostly related to the technical parts or the economical parts. That's the main thing. And if you like to crack that nut, you need to have a complex team in order to solve, and you need the expertise accordingly. Some of our subject matter jurisdiction actually only once described within the complaint. We have no ex officio legal competency, and I think it's a good thing because of the fly in, fly out solution. Then you have to solve complaint around the clock. No direct awards because it's considered to be direct purchase, and it's from the beginning sort of, let's say, contractual framework, then it's going straight to the court. Two things, important one, suspending effect. We can suspend the awarding procedure. And which is most important, I'll mention the standstill period. While a complaint is lodged to the council, the contracting authority is not allowed to sign the contract. That's the way of the judicial protection of the parties not to suffer damages within the process. It's a written-based process, and I think it's okay like this because you have to deal with a lot of information. The tenders are in written forms. We have some oral hearings, but only if we consider to be necessary. Some of the complaints don't require to have oral hearings because are quite simple to understand, is straightforward, then based on the document, you can go straight to the solution. Some of the others, much more complex requires another approach. Speaking about the second instance, we have designated Court of Appeal correlated with the contracting authority location, designated to solve the challenge against decisions, the council's decision. The court decision is final, conclusive, and binding for all. I'd like to mention that also the council decision is binding, and after the council decision, the contracting authority, if the complaint is considered with none with merit, is rejected, the contracting authority can sign the contract. It doesn't matter if the the parties consider to go further and to appeal in front of the Court of Appeal. We have our technology, our portal that we are dealing with the complaints. It's a web technology portal base. The main functionality is to ensure the flow documents. Actually, any activity is traceable on the web platform, and it's being used both for the parties to see on time the status of the complaint, and it's been considered also in order to analyze the case law. So it has several functions. Speaking about the challenge institutional level, yes, we face, let's say, the parliament several times. We have to apply new laws. The laws have been quite modified, and I remember one year we have 20 times when the law been modified, which is huge, and it makes you to shift from a decision to the other. So if you are going to apply new law, ensure enough time for the, let's say, contracting authorities and economic operator to understand the new law. Try to synchronize primary legislation with the secondary one. Actually, when we adopt the laws and we try to detail and to make some operational tools in the second layer of legislation, some of the things doesn't synchronize, and you have the primary law saying one thing and the second layer of legislation saying something that it was a bit misleading. Then you have to pay attention. And of course, when you are transposing a new law, delays and cost increase to be expected within the procedure, because until you are going to reach a critical mass, then you have to educate both contracting authority and economic operators how to apply the law. The term of references, actually you have to cross-check, and dealing with the public procurement law, it assumes that a lot of public institutions are going to be involved. And of course, what you learn, the institutional cooperation, actually it's mandatory. At the operational level, for what is something derived from the dealing with with complaints on daily basis, we have to deal rapidly with interim measures, sometimes with the panel hearings, confidentiality, which is quite an important thing because, okay, we are going to be transparent, but some of the state-of-art tenders, assuming that they have their own patents and some of them are going to be protected information, or then we have to pay attention. It's not something that is transparent 100% and nothing else matter. And it going forward to the disclosure versus non-disclosure. And of course, dealing with settled matters already, it means you have to refer to your case law, to your previous decision that you have to consider. Because if you state that you are going to reason, to have your line of reasoning in a specific case law matter, in that case, then you have to be consistent with your previous case law. How we try to improve dealing with complaints, case law, unification of administrative and jurisdictional practice, ensure user-friendly access to the case law information, and it's specifically I'm addressing to the NGO and to the civil society, because if they are going to understand the case law, it's going to be easier for them to supervise and to monitor the public procurement procedures, because they say, look what they decide previously, then you have to follow that line of reasoning. Of course, best practices, you have to be aware and to share it, and of course to think to the future and try to design further resilient solutions. Merci beaucoup for votre attention et thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Silvio. It was great, very informative. It added some points also to our takeaways. I like what you said at the very beginning. You said that now you know in your country the importance of this review body. 10 or 15 years ago, when you started your the establishment of this council, you said there was big resistance in Romania. We know because I mean, it's only normal and we're facing that too. However, now, you know, and you have witnessed the importance for the procurement system in the country for this setup and for this entity, which is the procurement review body. You said also something very important. You said the expertise needed in this body is mostly technical and economical. And you said also decisions are binding. And here we have 2 or 3 questions on that, on the decisions of the review body. But also you said something very interesting to us, because it's also one of the issues that we're facing. The decision of the council is appealed at the court. But you said there is a deadline for the court to take a decision. You said 40 or 45 days.
45 days.
Yes, 45 days. So the question is, what happens if there is no decision from the court after 45 days? This is one of the questions that we had on the chat, and I will continue. You have plenty of questions, so please, okay. We start with this.
Let's take them step by step, but please consider that my colleague Zoran is waiting to step in. So let's adjust the questions, and maybe at the end, all 3 of us can answer to the questions. But let me start like this. Dealing with complaint, it's essentially a matter of trust. And initially, when we faced resistance, it was a matter of doubt. Are we going to build something better? 15 years ago, Romania was ready to join EU. It was a country with an emergent economy, like yours, with a lot of big dreams to have a better life, to have highways, to have schools, to have better condition. And in order to do this and to join the EU, it was mandatory to comply with EU directives. Public procurement is one of the most important aspects regulated both within the treaty and in the directives. The concept of EU internal market is not something to play with. It's something big. That's why we understand that in order to solve complaints, we have to speak businesses and legalese. It's both business and legal ways. It's both national law and European law. It's international law, if I'm referring to the WTO, right? Because the WTO and the European laws are connected. Actually, when the European Union are negotiating the thresholds and setting the thresholds, are dealing with the WTO in order to negotiate the threshold. And in 15 years, we try to demonstrate that we are professionals. We try to display our integrity. And today, I have a word, a funny one. In public procurement, when in doubt, ask the council. And that's the thing that trust can lead you. But we have to work hard, because how can you display your trust, your knowledge within the decision? Within the decision, it doesn't matter if the contracting authority or the economic operator, the one who lodged the complaint, it's reading the decision with having a minimum of knowledge. They have to understand why it's a particular decision and not the other. Why we consider the complaint with merit, or we reject the complaint. 45 days, yes. If the Court of Appeal not comply, it's the same thing. A judge can be sanctioned. It's a disciplinary action. In Romania, let me make you available, even the judge can be sanctioned. Actually, it's a key word that we learn step by step the rule of law. So it doesn't matter if you're the head of the state or the last person in terms of whatever you like to be. It's the same law. If you cross it, that's that. Of course, we are not perfect. We have a lot to do on our plate. But we consider that if you have to enforce the law, you have to be the first one, by personal example, to obey to the rule of law. And it's not negotiable. I noticed at some point one of the questions referring to the conflict of interest. Yes, it's a big deal. It means that the member of the panels should prove at any second of the day that they are impartial and they are looking to the case in the neutral way, and they are apply the law. Nothing else matters.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautifully said. Thank you, Silvio. Without delaying Zoran, I will please allow me to take one more question and leave the other questions till the end. I have one question from Dr. Jean Ali, the president of the Central Tender Board, whom we are glad to have among us for the second day. He is asking about the role of an APP in ex-ante control. Please, if you can just clarify this.
Yes, I would actually. On that segment, we used to step on each other's toes from time to time. But eventually we learn how to cooperate. The regulatory body, they have sort of selection mechanism that they are selecting some of the procedure, and actually they are going to have a control fully fledged from top to the bottom, because you cannot have all the procedure having complaints in front of the council. Actually, it's not desirable, because you have procedure and complaint. It means that it's something wrong with the public procurement system. It's wrong. It's wrongly designed. And you know, I think complaints is like inflation. A couple percentage of the public procurement to have complaints is good, because it helps you to adjust. If you have an increasing percentage of complaints, then you have to think what is wrong with your system. Then you have to look into it and to re-engineering. They are going and check the procedure, and they are asking for the documents, and actually they are checking and validating the tender documentation before being uploading within the electronic platform.
They systematically do ex-ante. Sorry, Silvio, to pop in. They do a 100% ex-ante, or is it a sampling?
Exactly. They are doing sampling, and actually it took them a lot of time to defining a meaningful pool.
Yeah.
Because when you're
so
doing
it is a way for them to verify the systems much more than doing ex-ante for transactional purposes. Only they do ex-ante just to verify from time to time that everything is doing well. I think
that's sampling, because imagine if you are going to do systematically and you have, let's say, 50,000 procedure per year, then you have at least 50,000 people in order to deal with the procedure, because one people has to deal with the procedure and to check for how many years, how many months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It's a huge amount of resources that you have to devote it if you are going to do this.
But we see it as a conflict of interest here again, between the policy, but between the regulator and being involved in the transaction. But if it is at a sample level or something that is a spot verification, we can live with that. I think. I don't know how.
Well, it depends. It depends. It's up to you. It's nothing cast stone. But at the beginning, it's good to have something like that, not necessarily systemic, but fully fledged, because dealing with the complaints, it means just dealing with a bit of the procedure. it's not necessary to have, let's say, in the tender documentation phase to have a complaint. It means that you may have it within the evaluation process. So you take it from there, but you miss a lot of things that may happen, good or wrong, in the initial phase. So I think it's not an overlapping of the role. Actually, it's not even though with the court, it's not a parallel way of dealing with the public procurement. Each institution has its own role. What it's challenging to do, I may say the government level or the parliament level, is to educate the public institution to fulfill their purposes. I was the president of the council for 3 years, the last 3 years. And I know from first-hand experience that some of the institutions are tempted to look into the other's plates. No, each institution has enough, it's in own plates. You have to do what you have to do, you're supposed to do to fulfill your legal purposes, not to fight with the others for a bit of extra cheese. That's not the point. And I think that the MAPS procedure, the assessment, and thanks God you have Daniel, will help you to draw the lines and the milestone for the future. To be honest, in your stage, you may turn a Mac into your room. You have so much space to deal with. You look so fresh, so keep up with the good work.
Thank you very much, Silvio. Yes, we did the map with the help of Daniel, of course, and we had, we had identified many gaps at this level and other levels, as you said. Thank you. We don't want to be late. We are already late, but we still have one very important experience to share. The experience of the State Commission for Supervision of Public Procurement Procedure in Croatia, presented by Mr. Zoran Balzevic, who from Temporis Consulting, who is also international expert with OECD-SIGMA. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rana. Can you please just confirm that you can see my slides? Perfect. Okay, I would just like to say hello to all you ladies and gentlemen, and it was an interesting presentation so far and interesting debates and the questions. So any questions on this presentation are also welcomed. I was listening to your question during these two presentations, and we'll try to find and give you the answers to some of your questions during these presentations. So during the next 20 minutes, I would like to, I will be relatively fast and trying to give you as much possible information about 16 years of legal protection in Croatia, focusing both on ups and downs, what we have. We'll mention establishment of the Croatian independent review body, its role and the mandate in dealing with the procurement complaints, the appointment of its members, staffing, budget, all other issues which I personally find to be very important. Something that is also important, that over these 16 years that we have independent procurement review body and that we are developing our procurement system. At the beginning, I would just like to share with you that unfortunately mistakes within the procurement system are not linear, they are circular, meaning that if you had some mistakes in 2008, it could be reopened again after 7, 8, 10 years, and then you have another mistake in the system. So once when you establish your public procurement system and your review body, you need to continue to govern the system, to nurturing it like a baby, until it is fully mature and until it can actually work for itself and benefit your entire country. Something that I will give you also lesson learned in situation to avoid that you can learn on our mistakes. So when saying about the public procurement system, what we want to have the public procurement system which is open and competitive. One thing when discussing on the public procurement system in general, that invitation for tenders should be published whether on some central electronic portals or on websites or on the websites of the contracting authorities, that the competition among the tenderers should be based on the competence, capacity, quality, and price. But this is the wish list, what we would like that our public procurement system to be. If we don't have all the institutions in a proper places during a proper job based on the legislation which are on power, unfortunately this system will not function because of the various reasons. One of the precondition to have the efficient public procurement system is to have the efficient independent review and remedy system that is available to all tenderers, to the economic operators, the private sector. We need to highlight one thing within the public procurement is that within the public procurement, we are speaking about disbursement of the public funds when you are actually buying public works, public services, or public supplies. On one side, you have the economic operators, which are the taxpayers, and on the other side, you have in a general public administration, which are through public procurement system is spending taxpayers' money. When you have Ministry of Finance and the tax office who is controlling are the economic operators, and the representatives of the private sector are paying taxes on time. On the other side, you will also should have some kind of the institution which is going to control whether that tax revenue is actually spent according to the law. So imagine if you don't have the Ministry of Finance and the tax office, I ask you the question whether the private sector will still pay the taxes on time. Probably not. The same situation is within the public procurement system if you don't have the efficient independent review system. And the first key question is how to control the legal, illegal behavior of the contracting authorities and ensure proper level of the competition. When we are discussing the corruption and when we are discussing the problems within the public procurement system, we need to highlight that majority of the problems within the public procurement are caused by the public administration and by the contracting authorities because of different reasons. Most common reason why it is actually not a corruption, it is lack of knowledge. So the mistakes within the preparation of the tender documentation caused because of the lack of the knowledge, insufficient time to prepare the complicated tender documents, especially in the high value infrastructure projects, is something that is commonly seen in Croatia even today. And if we are going to go into the illegal behavior of the contracting authorities and how to ensure the proper level of the competition, then it is even more difficult to find the best way how to approach it. When we go back in Croatia in time, in 2003, when this everything begins, Public Procurement Department within Ministry of Finance was responsible for the preparation of the legislation and the bylaws. They also issues the instructions and present opinions about the public procurement law to the contracting authorities and the economic operators. They issue the private approvals for the direct dealings. They decide on complaints. They collected, recorded, process, and analyze procurement data. It will be next year. It will be almost 20 years as I'm working in a public procurement system. I started to work within the Ministry of Finance in 2002. So in a way, I understand how messy situation was at that time. So the key question was, when you see this, that there is a possible conflict of interest, that you are participating in the writing of the legislation and bylaws one day, then you issue the opinions, then you give a direct dealing to the contracting authority, then you have a complaint. And similar advisors have decide on the same thing. Possible conflict of interest is always there. So then the first question at that time was how to improve institutional setup and ensure proper level of the competition. So this is in a way, it's like playing chess. You need to play the good moves. First thing in playing chess is to decide what you want to do, whether you're going to attack or you are going to defend yourself, and then how your figures is going to be put on the table. You need to decide on the right strategy. And of course, here is the situation at that time. You see that Croatia is the republic. We have the parliament and the government. At that time, we established something which is very good, the coordinating body for the implementation of the public procurement system on the level of the government, meaning that different ministries and different state agency, the heads of the different ministries and different state agency were within that coordinating body. Head of that coordinating body was the vice president of the government and minister of economy. And within of the Ministry of Economy, there was a directorate for the public procurement system for the policy. So in 2003, this directorate for the public procurement system was within the Ministry of Finance, and then it is moved to the Ministry of Economy. Later on, it became the government office. It is also, there were also the informal group, you can see it here. The informal group were members from all the institutions, Ministry of Economy, Agency for Investment and Competitiveness, and Ministry of Finance, because they were in charge for the concessions and for the public-private partnerships. And now the question, where to put the State Commission for the Supervision of the Public Procurement Procedures? If you put it within the ministry, then it's evident that if it is within the ministry, that it is the part of the executive government. And then when the economic operators is submitted appeals on the high value procurement procedures, in the way, you know, the conflict of interest is there, that the institution is charged, it's actually part of the public administration that is spending the money. So based on the Slovenian model, we use the similar institutional setup that Croatian members of the State Commission are elected by the Croatian Parliament for the mandate of the 4 years, and they can be re-elected. The Croatian State Commission is fully independent institution. The only responsibility that they have is to submit the annual report to the Croatian Parliament. They are autonomously budgetary user, and their budget is issuing by the Ministry of Finance. I find that to be a little bit problematic. We'll cover that later on. So you can see here in this green field that now the participants in the public procurement concessions, public procurement procedures, and the PPPs, the tenderers, when they appeal against of the tender documentation, they do not appeal anymore to the agency or to the ministry or to the institution which is part of the executive government. They are appealing to the independent institutions. So this is the first step in the way to ensure the institutional independence and to ensure the visibility of that independence as well. So that happened in November in 2003. The State Commission started to work actually in January in 2004. In February 2010, there was a new act on the State Commission that the stronger independence it's enabled for the members. There is also new jurisdiction brought by this legislation in the field of the concessions and the PPPs. And I can say for the fact that in the last 15 years, the State Commission is autonomous and independent national body of second instance, which exercises its jurisdiction by deciding on complaints concerning all levels of the public procurement procedure. More or less the same way how my colleague and good friend Silvio from Romania already explained, so I will skip that part. The appeals are possible on the tender documentation, on the award decision. We all have the problems within the State Commission. I also worked within the State Commission during the first mandate. When you need to decide relatively fast, if you decide even within 2 months, that's relatively fast. If you need to make a decision in a public procurement procedure, where public procurement procedure is 50 kilometers of the highway or 4 tunnels or the dam or any high value infrastructure project, that just the level of the tender documentation can be extremely huge. why it is important to have the independent institution. First, I can say that Croatian solution or Slovenian solution as well is far from the ideal. I would say that there is no ideal solution in public procurement. You will always find it's actual balances of positive and negative things where you actually decide to have the step which gives you more positive and the less negative things. Why we decided to go into this direction is first, there is need for rapidity in solving complaints. Croatian administrative court, Croatian civil court have delays up to 5 months to year and a half. It's impossible to reach a fast solution. There is also a relatively short period of time to decide on various cases. I heard the examples from Georgia where they have the time limits of 10 days. I would say this is very short time to deal with it. It's not easy. There are very complicated cases. There are complex cases, especially if the oral hearings are introduced into the work of the PRB. I personally think that the oral hearing should be introduced. We'll say later on a little bit about that as well. There is also need for a specific knowledge. You need a champion in a way of the public procurement in the Lebanon, somebody who will deal with lots of problems and who are actually well paid to find a solution, and they need to find a solution for the major problem relatively fast. And I fully agree with the colleague from Georgia when he said the best way and the only way, I will say the first step is how to fight the corruption is full transparency. So if you have a full transparency of the work of the PRB, then everybody can share the knowledge of the work of the PRB. Everybody can see what are the major problems and how do they solve that problems. Then the contracting authorities, they understand how not to repeat the same mistakes again. So the problem within the contracting authority in general, if you see how contracting authority, if let's say that the contracting authority is preparing the tender documentation, just to understand the complexity of the work of the independent PRB. If we have the contracting authority, they are preparing the tender documentation. They need to prepare the technical specification, evidence of the suitability, the meet criteria, the contract number of the documents. They need to plan number of the phases of the public procurement, from the planning phases to the execution of the contract. We are here only in the phase of the publication of the tender documentation, evaluation phase, and awarding phase. This is the job of the PRB, to control that phase of the public procurement. Why? Because when contracting authority is doing their work, this is the influence that they have. They have an influence on their employees, of course. They are influenced under the stakeholders, under the competitors, under the suppliers, different suppliers. They are always, moving the technical specification to the way that they will feel better when they are submitting the bids. From the users are usually not satisfied with the technical specification, whether they are being the contracting authorities employees or whether they be citizens of the country as end users. Unions, if the contracting authority have the unions. Political parties, interference of the political parties into the high value infrastructure project in any country, it's unbelievably difficult to handle. National and local government, educational institutions as well, legislation and the policy. You have good legislation, you have bad legislation. Sometimes it's better, to have a piece of legislation which is not good but does not complicate too much, which is simple and efficient, than to have a perfect legislation which in the way is prescribing every step of the contracting authority, and then actually you have the public administration which is in the way forbidden to think. Everything is prescribed from A to B to B to C, and then when they need to have one step for themselves, which is not prescribed by the legislation, it's completely blocked. They don't know what to do. So then you have the financial institutions, the banks, We don't need to discuss about that. We have the public interest groups and the NGOs. All of them have the impact on the preparation of the tender documentation of the contracting authorities in general. How to decide what is legal, what is illegal here. That's something that you need a lot of experience in it, whether to decide it is something administrative breach of the preparation within the tender documentation. Are there some criminal deeds in it where then the state attorney office will be in charge for it? Whether there are possibility for the lawsuit to the civil court to claim for the damages. Number of issues here, but we are focusing now on the publication of the tendering procedure, on the appeal on the tender documents, on the evaluation phase, and the appeal on the award decision, which is the job of the PRB. So when questions how to ensure the transparent and efficient work of the State Commission. So this is the fair and the transparent process of the election of the members is the first step. It has to be transparent, it has to be fair. Whether it's 100% independent, if it is the fair and transparent, that still is enough. But I would say, for example, one idea in 2003 was that the members in Croatia will be elected by a Croatian State Judicial Council. Croatian State Judicial Council basically said, we will refuse to do that, we only elect judges. So then we decided to go back to the parliament. Parliament accepted that. Second step is the sufficient budget and needed financial independence. Because without the sufficient budget, you will see later on, without proper financial independence, the State Commission, the independent PRB, can actually create harm to the procurement system instead of improving the system. Business relationship with the contracting authority and the private sector is the must. You know, how to have the proper balance between the independence, but then to be the open institution. It's so hard to gain the trust. To gain the trust of the private sector and the contracting authorities, you need several of years, not 1 year. I would say you need like 2-3 years, and then when the mandate of our first members expired, and when you have the new mandate of the new members, and if the new members continue to do the proper work, then you can say that you have the institution which actually survived the first years. Business relationship with the executive government, never easy task. First, to fight for the financial independence, to ensure in the way that you are independent in the proper way. Because, you know, to gain the trust, it's something that you need to fight for years, but it's enough just to do one wrong step and you're going to lose the trust. And without the trust from the economic operators, basically you will see you don't have anything. How you can do that? Again, the transparency of the work, visibility of the State Commission work. State Commission did a lot. They publicly made available all the State Commission decision on the web page. They participate on the conferences and workshop, issued the manuals, both for the contracting authorities and economic operators as well, because the economic operators, this was the first state institution which basically said private sector, economic operator is the equal part to the public side in the public procurement procedure. So the public procurement procedure is the procedure where you have two parties, public and private side, they have equal rights. So you can find more information about this institution on this site, which is mentioned here. Something that I would just like to highlight, that this, when speaking about the maximum transparency, is not something specific, it's not something which is like technically high demanding, but this is something that I personally am proud of. This is what we did in 2006. So it's still there, but it is like already 15 years old. We put the classification number of all the appeal, who is the contracting authority, who is the appellant, what is the case, what are the procurement items, decisions, and in case that after the decisions of the Croatian PRB is the final, but there is also possibility for an administrative lawsuit to the administrative court, and the administrative court decision is also here. So you can check all the decisions of the Croatian PRB in the last 15 years. So if anybody in Croatia or in the region is doing any kind of the masters or the PhDs in public procurement, this is always a source of information. If you want to find out how many procurement items are canceled from some contracting authority in the last 10 years, you can find it here. Because of what reasons? All the annual reports in the last 15 years are also publicly available here, where State Commission, which has a lot of knowledge, prepared the annual report about the most common mistakes done by the contracting authority and the economic operators during that year, and submits this to the Parliament. So just briefly to go through the years, what happened? The commission started with the 6 employees, 5 members appointed by the Parliament, and 1 Secretary General. You see the number of appeals here, 700, 600. And then in December 2008, it was 21 employees, 637 complaints, ideal scenario. Relatively fast, relatively sufficient number of employees. You will see the problem. What happened later on, the average state commission budget per year, more or less 700,000 euros. Average value of appeal cases controlled by the state commission, 800 million euros. This is the large scale values. Later on, it becomes even more. But this, the influence of all those parties to the member is extremely high. So statistical information 2004-2007, so the State Commission is controlling 7% of all the published public procurement procedure, but this is important, is controlling 17% of all the values spent. So meaning that there are more appeals in the high value cases. This is something what actually we want to gain. Check this out. This is 50% of all the complaints were accepted at that time, meaning that the contracting authorities made a mistake. There was an institution strong enough who actually said, this is not good. We are going to cancel the tender documentation. We are going to cancel the award decision. You need to reevaluate this. You need to repeat the tender documents. The 30 days duration of the complaint procedure in front of the commission, that was in 2007. Later on, unfortunately, it increased a lot, because from 2008, it was possible to introduce through the new legislation amendments the possibility to file an appeal on the award decision and on the tender documentation, which in the way duplicated the number of appeals. But that was the problem at that time. The budget of the State Commission remained the same. So twice more work with the same staff, meaning the prolongation of the time needed to solve the complaint. Something that I can say here as a lesson learned, and what I think it's interesting is that independence and the State Commission has important role in fighting the corruption in public sector. Why is the important role? And where there was a problem with the corruption, we still have the problem with the corruption in the public sector, because this was the first institution which on one web page put everything, put all the mistakes of the public administration visible to everyone. And we even have the conferences for the media, from the NGOs, for the journalists, explaining them what is public procurement, what is the concession, what are the PPPs, what are the roles and responsibilities of the contracting authorities. Not every mistake is a criminal deed. You cannot charge somebody for not knowing. You need to educate them. I would say we were discussing a few days ago with one colleague from Switzerland, the judge of the Federal Swiss Administrative Court. He was saying that when they made changes in the legislation, their Ministry of Finance, their Public Procurement Office, they prepared the 4-year plan of educating the contracting authorities on proper execution of that legislation. It's not enough just to have the legislation and then expect that the contracting authorities can handle that. So this was in 2008. Let's go 2009 and 2013. Important legislative changes, we have the full harmonization with EU directives, and then happened the lack of staff of the State Commission. Financial crisis struck us hard in 2008, and the government of Croatia have forbidden the additional employment in the civil service. And then we get the high number of appeals, up to 2,000 per year, because of the changes in this legislation. What happened? Prolongation of the time decision up to 63 more days. If you see that here is the 2,000 cases per year that the State Commission managed to solve one case in average per 30 days, and that here is prolongation for 33 more days. If you calculate that on 2,000 cases, you get around 126,000 days more delaying in public procurement because the State Commission doesn't have enough budget. Just to employ few more legal advisors and few more members can actually help a lot for the state finance to become more efficient, because the public procurement system has direct link again with economic work of the economic operators, and the collection of the tax revenue to the Ministry of Finance. Again, it's in the way is the spinning wheel. What happened also, the corruption affairs in the public procurement. There were arrests in more than 50 major contracting authority for misuse of the public funds, where the heads of the board, members of the board, assistant ministers ended up in jail for the investigation for the misuse of the public funds. Here is something, key lesson learned here, financial independence is as important as institutional independence, plus important thing. You cannot fight corruption in public procurement without the state attorney office. There is no way. The independent PRB here is to protect the right of economic operators during the tender procedure, to give them the fast and efficient legal protection. If I'm going to invest in some bid, and if I as a private sector want to win, I would do that in a country where I have the independent review body. If I don't have an independent review body, I will not going to do it. So this is something where the country basically gives international companies clear message. We have independent review body. We want to open the competition. Please submit the bids. On the other side, I heard in a number of the countries where I had the opportunity, including in Croatia, to work for the OECD-SIGMA, that politicians would like to protect their own companies in a way that they are afraid that the foreign companies will steal their work and their jobs. That's funny story in a way, because if the market is not open to the competition, then what is happening that your own companies will abuse that. What happened is that the prices within the tenders will go up and the quality will go down. There are a number of reasons why so. In 2014-2018, the transfer of knowledge from public institutions to the contracting authorities and the private sector. Before 2014, vast knowledge about public procurement was within the Croatian PRB and the Croatian Public Procurement Office. Today is within the biggest contracting authorities in the Republic of Croatia, who are understanding public procurement, who are sending their employees to the masters, to the PhDs in all the university in Europe, transferring the knowledge. This is something which I would say it's a natural way how to do it. We have one problem, and this is the lesson learned here, that the public procurement system have to be maintained and upgraded over the years. And some problems that you have in previous years should not be repeated again. What happened here that in 2017, we introduced the new PPL with 452 articles in comparison to 188 articles in the PPL from 2011. Imagine if you have the company, if Croatia has 4.5 million of people, something around 20,000. You can see here, we spent 4.8 billion of euros in 18,000 published procurement procedure. It's like a big multinational company in the way. None of the multinational companies will change their internal regulation in such a drastic way. So there are a number of changes here. It was 2018, 2019 was so demanding to the contracting authority, they just didn't know what to do. On the other side, State Commission within the legislation has done the proper way. They introduced, they saw that when they are having only 5 members, that this is the bottleneck for the review system, because those 5 members has to participate in each consult session when they will decide on the appeals. So they changed the legislation. They now have 9 members. Having a possibility to decide within 3 panels, plus 21 legal advisors and 4 administrative clerks. Still roughly around 1,100, 1,200 appeals per year. Problematic thing in Croatia in the last 3 years is that the Public Procurement Office over the years lost a lot of its capacity, and which continues until the present day. So we have the strong PRB in the way, but our policy-making institution is not such a strong institution anymore. That's being said, you know, you see, we have a new PPL from 2017 with almost 2.5 times more articles, no amendments. Each Croatian PPL, which were even shorter than 188 articles in previous years since 1997, had amendments. This one, which is the biggest one in Croatian history, so far doesn't have any amendments. Is this the ideal law? I already said that neither I do believe in ideal institution. I also don't believe in ideal laws. There are a number of mistakes within the laws, but luckily those mistakes has been passed with the case law of the Croatian PRB. But this is expensive way how to solve the mistakes. Current problems. So the governance of the e-procurement system and the e-appeal system, we have the full e-procurement system since 2013, and the e-appeal system also as well. How to govern the e-appeal system, what to do with it, it should be much better. You see, in this era of the digitalization, if we are speaking on the tax revenue side, fiscalization of the invoices happen in almost every country. But what happened on the other side of spending the taxpayers' money? Not even close to the digitalization. So when discussing the governance of the procurement system in almost each of the countries, there is a lot of work to do. Perception of the public procurement is negative in the most of the new EU members and the candidate countries as well, because of the reasons. I would say this reason, the same: fiscalization, digitalization for the tax revenue from one side. On the other side, you know, not such a strong penalties if the contracting authorities do not respect the public procurement law. New generation of civil servants. There is, of course, the new generation is here. Difference between the knowledge and experience for them, it's a problematic. Knowledge, more or less, it's available now. In our age, it was not available as it is available now, but experience is not. So we can see the number of new staff within the ministries, within the agency, having nice ideas based on the knowledge that they grab somewhere from the internet, but without the experience, they're doing a lot of mistakes. Only knowledge and experience give the optimal combinations. That being said, also the different opinions of the state authorities didn't help much. So this increased the distrust between the private and the public sector a lot. I'm sure that you felt that is in Lebanon as well. Not only the private sector, but also the citizen do not have the trust towards the government, towards the state, that the government and the state, that they will protect them, and that the government and the state, that they are doing the steps that are in the interest of the common citizens. This is visible through public procurement. If the economic operator doesn't have the trust in the public procurement system, it doesn't have a trust within the government as well. So it's one thing, it's you have the so-called functional distrust. Functional distrust is in the way, I don't believe you because I don't know you. But once when we started to work, and when I see that your intentions are proper and justified, I will trust you. But when this distrust becomes dysfunctional, which is right now, for example, in Croatia and a number of the country in region and Lebanon as well, this basically means that I don't trust the public side, and I will never trust the public side, because they will do whatever is necessary for them and not for us. So this functional distrust it's very dangerous. So to sum up, this lesson learned in the last 15 years, transparent and efficient review system is a precondition for development of the public procurement system. Here at the position where you're right now, the key question for you, what to do, you need to establish the institution. Where are you going to put it? It's up to you to decide, but it has to be transparent and it has to be efficient. And this is not enough. Education of the public and the private sector about public procurement, and this is up to most importance, not just the technical side of the public procurement, about integrity and ethical behavior. I sometimes said to our colleagues in Croatia, it's too late for us to be educated anymore. We need to go back to the universities and to educate the students. So in Croatia, unfortunately, only on the law university there is a little bit about the public procurement, but in general, neither university does cover the subject of the public procurement. Thus, we need to send our students abroad, which is in a way good, but in another way bad. You send them abroad to study, they never return back. Meaning that we need to establish this curricula for our own university as well. Important role of media, NGOs, and the journalists. Average head of the contracting authority avoids media, avoids NGO and the journalist. Successful representative, the head of the contracting authority, doesn't care about the media, NGO, or the journalist. He made everything transparent. Whatever they ask from them, they give all the information, they share all the information. And then do not share this information after the court forced them to do so, or after a year or two, or in some non-readable document. They share all information or put them publicly available online, that everybody can see what they are doing, and then they can judge whether that is good or not. And transparency, because of that reason, transparency and independence of the PRB is the cornerstone to fight the corruption in the public procurement, because then you give the tool to the media, to the NGO, to the journalists, to the state attorney office. Basically, these are the problems within the procurement system. Now you just guess what are the problems. You have number of ideas, you have even number of the knowledge, you even probably have some kind of the court cases. But imagine if you have, for example, in Croatia, 30,000 cases, in Romania, probably 60,000 cases in the last 15 years about public procurement. You can learn a lot about that practice. That will be it from my side. I hope that I didn't steal too much of your time and that you have the energy to ask some questions.
Thank you very much, Zoran. It was very, very clear, very informative. You have stressed on key messages. You have, by the way, you have answered already some questions that we earlier. So you have stressed on key messages. Your key message was, yes, transparency. Transparency is the first step towards fighting corruption. On this we all agree, and in all cases, not only in public procurement. You have also stressed on the independence of the review body, the independence of this review body on the institutional level and on the financial level. This is very important. And you said that this will send a clear message of confidence and trust to international companies. Without that, we have to, yes, we have, this is a very important message to us in Lebanon. Without this message of confidence, we will be lacking competition and good international companies, etc., etc. Also, you have stressed on that sometimes, and you are right, sometimes there is a lack of knowledge not only bad intention and corruption. The lack of knowledge is also a big problem in management.
Rana, may I highlight only this? It's not sometimes.
Yes.
I find out to be one of the main reasons for number of the mistakes is the lack of knowledge and capacity. First reason
Yes.
for mistakes done in the public procurement, then another reasons.
Yes, I fully agree with you, and this is where we have our core mission at the Institut des Finances Basil Fuleihan is building the capacities of civil servants, and here in public procurers in particular. You call it education and educate people. We call it building their capacities and train them. This is it mainly. We still have like one or two questions. I will take them very, very quickly before we wrap up with Daniel and conclude. We are already very late. Sorry for this, but it was really very interesting and informative. You said, I don't know, I will ask you this question to you, Zoran. Silvio said that after the council decision, after the council or the PRB has a decision in a case, the contract can be signed. Is this the same case in your country also?
Yes, if the appeal,
yes.
When the award is the same situation, when an award decision is reached, then you have the standstill period, the time when where you basically cannot do anything, where the economic operators has the right to submit the appeal on the award decision. Appeal is submitted to the PRB. If the PRB rejects the appeal, then ex lege contract is already signed. So in a way, the contracting authority doesn't have a possibility to avoid signing the contract. You have the award decision, you have the tender documentation, call for tender for on one side, you have the bid from the economic operator from another side. In the time when you have the award decision, you have the will of both sides to join the contract, plus the legislation of the PPL, who actually technically prescribed how that it is done.
Okay, thank you. Another question, but I think Silvio answered it. It was from Lina. I don't know if Lina is still with us. Lina from the World Bank. She's saying that, okay, the PRB decisions are binding, but how can you ensure that it's only by writing it in the law? Silvio has tackled
Good question. I remember discussing this question in 2006 with one of our colleagues that we were working at that time from Austria. He said, and I quote this, in Croatia, when somebody do not respect public procurement law, his career is starting. In Austria, if you don't respect the public procurement law, your career is immediately stopped, whether to be within the private sector or in the public sector. I can say now that in 2021 in Croatia, if you do not respect the public procurement law, your political career is stopped. So not meaning that you will have the criminal investigation brought against you. Nobody is even do not think about not to respect the decision of the Croatian State Commission, because immediately, whether the NGOs, whether the media, whether the journalist, whether the common citizen will submit the claim to the state attorney office, claiming some kind of the breach of the criminal act.
Very nice what you said. Okay, I think if we don't have any more questions from the chat board, this is it. We can quickly wrap up with Daniel and conclude. Daniel, the floor is yours. Quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana. Well, indeed, yesterday and today we have learned quite a number of things from the experience. So I'll try to very briefly sum up the main points that have been made and that could be useful for Lebanon for the development of the review of public procurement complaints. First of all, we have mentioned a few general points about the reasons for having a review body and the advantages compared to some theoretical alternatives. The rapidity in solving the complaints and thereby moving procurement forward. The specialization, that is a relatively greater know-how and experience of the members and consequently better decisions. It offloads the court system. It has an important pedagogical effect. It makes both procuring entities and tenderers pay more attention to doing the right things in the right way, and it also provides them with a better ability to do so by the evidence base that is formed by the past decisions. And finally, better procurement for these reasons also give better management of public funds. There are a number of specific points that could be useful to keep in mind as well. For the members of the PRB, the need to include both legal and professional expertise and know-how. The need to set minimum requirements for member skills and experience, and to use professional inputs when nominating PRB candidates. To limit the PRB mandate to matters regulated in public procurement law. To give standing not only to tenderers and prospective tenderers, but also their organizations. Regarding deadlines, short deadlines are fine, but they should be realistic and rather not compulsory, allowing for the complexity of the case to be duly reflected. Automatic suspension, like in Georgia, is a very easy thing, but it may not always be useful. The most important thing is to prevent contract signature before a decision is made on a complaint against an award decision. It is important to link the PRB processes with e-procurement in general for transparency and efficiency. Not to make the PRB dependent on government institutions to secure independent financing and administrative support. Ensure that also cases of single source procurement, direct agreement, can be addressed by the PRB. To make the proceedings transparent, if you have hearings, by all means, consider inviting CSOs at least to those hearings which are held on matters that have been raised before the deadline for submitting tenders. Any initial doubts, if any, about the usefulness of the PRB usually disappear with time, so that the PRB then becomes recognized and appreciated. It would be useful to limit what can be complained against and when. For example, complaints against tender documents should be possible to make no later than, say, a certain number of days before the tender submission date, so as not to have to go back and redo a lot of things that could have been addressed at an early stage. Fees may be useful, particularly for discouraging frivolous complaints, but at the same time, they should not unduly restrict access to justice. The PRB decisions should be binding, and what that will lead to, as we see in the Romanian example, if it is in favor of a procuring entity, then the procedure can move ahead, including, for example, contract signature. Consultations between the different central level authorities involved in one way or another in public procurement would help unify public procurement law interpretation and application. It is important to work continuously on improving the procurement system, including the review body. a lack of knowledge and skills in public procurement is often a greater cause of problems than intentional fraud and corruption. There are many pressures on procuring entities from various interested parties, and that is another reason to really ensure the independence of the review body. Its decisions can highlight the nature and frequency of mistakes made, and thereby help prevent them by better focusing measures to improve education and training. That is important in order to raise the level of knowledge, but experience is also important. The financial independence is as important as the institutional dependence of the review body. Legal stability and simplicity helps ensure effective, well-working, competitive procurement. And indeed, with an actual real authority of the review body being established, then you can expect sooner or later that its decisions will be followed without too many complementary efforts needed in order to enforce them. So those are the main points that I have noted from the main messages by the different experts and the country examples. So concluding on the way forward for Lebanon, on the discussions of the draft law and what could be needed in order to create a well-working complaints mechanism. First of all, I think we have concluded and agreed on the need for a new independent first instance review body. The key legal provisions and the administrative solutions still to agree on, taking into consideration the lessons learned that I've just mentioned, would be the number, the profile, the appointment of the members of the review body and their employment conditions, the standing, that is who will have the right to submit complaints, also to make clear what can be complained against at what stage of the process, the remedies that should be available for the review body to use, and possibly some provisions that would help ensuring their application, their enforcement. Some practical questions about hosting, the budget, and the other resources, and then the procedural details that have to be set on paper, the question of fees, if any, and the administrative tools and systems that should be available to the review body in order to handle the cases that come before it. So those would be my observations and conclusions from the 2 days here. And this is something that we will be happy to issue together with the rest of the documentation. There is a presentation format which I'm now filling in order for it to be available for all the participants. And summing up the points that I have just mentioned in my concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. Those takeaways will be used with the parliamentary committee and stakeholders to take forward the PP law discussions and decide on a suitable solution for Lebanon. Finally, I would like to thank all our speakers, Mr. Daniel Iverson, Mr. David Bernstein, Mr. Peter Gotschler, Mr. Kaha Demetrashvili, Mr. Dimitri Gulishashvili, Mr. Silvio Popa, and Mr. Zoran Balzevich. We will stay in touch with our speakers to learn more from their models and implementation. We also thank our partners, the World Bank and OECD-SIGMA, and of course, all the participants for their attendance and active participation. I invite you to visit our website for more information on the topic and to follow us on social media. Thank you, and sorry for being late. Thank you all. Goodbye. Thanks.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Lamia.
Best wishes to all Lebanese.
Thank you, Dr. Jean.
Best regards from Zagreb to everyone. Good luck and stay healthy.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.